Good morning. Thank you for coming. This morning's Dharma talk is titled The Three Links, or These Three Links. I want to emphasize that there are 12 links or nidanas on the chain of existence as it is taught in the Buddha's Dharma down through the centuries. Because that's something I want to just rattle those off, my memory, working with my vocal cords, etc., does not run very smoothly, so I'm going to read these to you. Simply put, I'm not going to use the Sanskrit. Well, you can look that up. Ignorance, formations, consciousness, that's the first three. So there's ignorance, and there's formations come out of ignorance, and then there's consciousness, which you could say there's different kinds of consciousness. Traditionally, it's broken up into the kind of consciousness that is producing things, and then there's the kind of consciousness that is receiving. That's what actually happens between lifetimes. If you want to look into this deeply, there's tons of material out there on this. Will take you conceptually into things that are just about impossible to talk about with concepts. Good luck. The next three, 4, 5, and 6, name and form, Namarupa. The 6 sense fields, and the next one is contact. And the three that I want to emphasize are feeling, craving, grasping. Feeling, you have a feeling. So first there's contact, that's number 6. And then 7, 8, and 9. Feeling, craving, wanting something, wanting more of something, or feeling, wanting something to go away, or kind of feeling where feels so neutral, you just push it away or you ignore it. A kind of distraction that is intentional, volitional. So we'll go to the last 3, 10, 11, and 12, becoming, and then birth, and then old age, sickness, and death. This is very traditional. It is said that the Buddha came out of his palace when he was a young prince and saw sickness, aging, and death. He saw someone who was ill, he saw someone who's very, very old, and he saw a corpse. And then the fourth one sometimes is mentioned in the teaching. He also saw a monk or a mendicant or a sannyasin or someone who was training their mind. He saw those. Three that I want to talk about here, and we can go back over these again if you like. The 3 that I want to talk about are 7, 8, and 9. But let's go back to 6. So 6 is the contact. First, there's eye contact with what I'm about to blow. Pardon this noise. And all the other sense fields where there's contact, seeing, smelling, hearing, touching, thinking, remembering, all of those things are happening in consciousness, just sequentially and sometimes overlapping, and sometimes they don't seem to have a past and a future. They're just coming up in ways that make it very, very difficult to sort anything out. I don't care how much you think about it or reflect on it or how great your intellect is. It's very circular. So there's contact. Let's just say contact with the thought process, the 4th skandha, or contact with feeling, the 2nd skandha. And of course, the skandhas are form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness. Look it up. So there's contact, and then what happens then? Then the next one that comes up, feeling, or vedana, feeling. We feel something, and we don't want it, or we feel something, and we want more of it. All the variations, all the nuance. It's amazing. Our life is full of feelings that are quite often, in most of the world, billions of people, is conflicting emotions about the nature of what this is. And it drives people to love, it drives people to hate, drives people to distraction and ignorance and just filling themselves up with whatever, alcohol or drugs or distraction in anything. It could be anything as much as just making model airplanes. But it's still a distraction, not evil. It's just distracting yourself, spending your whole life doing that in order to not suffer. It's a relative way of approaching it. So there's a feeling connected with thinking about it or wanting something, and then the number 8 is a desire or craving, and that craving might be not just the grasping, wanting, desire kind. It might be the craving for something to leave, go away, stop it. I don't like this anymore. So that's a kind of craving, which is filled with what? One of the 3 poisons. Which one is it?
Aggression.
Aggression. There's passion, aggression, and ignorance. We push things, aggression. We pull on things, passion, and we distract ourselves or ignore. It is necessary to what? It's necessary to be aware of that. If you try to go in there and push that or stop being aggressive, you're just putting your money in the jukebox. It'll play that song for 50 years or maybe the rest of your life. I want it, I don't want it, I want it, I don't want it, it should be, it shouldn't be. On and on and on. The world is doing that, and they're doing what? As soon as they get in any kind of trouble, they blame someone. Or if they start to feel really good, instead of just feeling good, they find, why do I feel good? Because they want more of that, they want control. You do not have any control. If you've been listening to me for any number of years or months or weeks, you'll see that I'm just saying the same thing I said in 2016. You don't have any control. Why do I get cranky about it? Because I've been saying it over and over and over and over and over again. I'm saying the same thing. Go back and listen to any one of the talks that I've given, if you can find them. You won't find much different. Maybe I'm just more cranky now than I was then. Not here to make friends. I can be very friendly, but I'm not here to make friends with you. My job here so far as a living being is to help you, encourage you with your permission to see the truth yourself. You need to see it. And this may be confusing to you when I say this, but you will not know what you're seeing. If you know what you're seeing, we're right back to the circularity. We're right back to passion, aggression, and ignorance. We're right back to 7, 8, 9. So it is about being aware of this. And how do we do this? I'm very biased here. Sitting practice of meditation, not to mention studying the Dharma, studying the concepts like we're doing here. These are 12 concepts. And there's extensive teaching on this. There's a way of breaking this up and to show where the first 2 are the previous lifetime, the middle 8 are this lifetime, and the last 2 are the next lifetime. So that gives you a conceptual way of seeing how you could have more than one lifetime. You won't remember necessarily. If you do, then that's very unusual. Feeling, craving, grasping, feeling something, thinking something, perceiving something after there's been contact through the mind stream, through the emotions, through something that happened down the hallway, in the other room, between you and your partner, or you and your child, that triggers something over here. And that something over here may be something you're very familiar with, and it may be something that you didn't know was there until this situation over here happened. And then suddenly you're starting to blame that for why you're feeling this way. Remember the last time somebody said, did, or this or that? Suddenly you have mountain out of a molehill feelings about that. And what do you want to do? You want to blame them or what they said for how you feel. This is the very nature of suffering, the very nature of confusion. I don't say there isn't 15 or 20 other ways of working with this. Of course there are. You can just have a psychologist and do it with what's that one? You're a psychologist.
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, I never can remember that. CBT. Of course, I remember it. Actually, I didn't. I couldn't remember what the first one was. I knew it was behavioral. So you could use that, and probably works to some extent. People do that. People pay other people to help them do that. And some people, that is what they need to do. They don't need to just sit down and train their mind. Not ready for that. Not that they're bad or inept or not gifted or don't have the intelligence. No, it's just the timing in what we call karma, the causes and conditions that arises this person or these people. It will show up in a certain way, and either you'll be able to do this or you will not. And you do not have any control over it. You might think just because you can get up from here in an hour or less and leave this room that you're in control of things. No. Consciousness only. There's only consciousness only that is completely colored, smeared with personality and beliefs and opinions and ideas and memories and constructs that are right and wrong, it should be, it shouldn't be, and this happened and that happened. Nothing happened. You cannot find the past. If you think you can by remembering it, this is untrue. It's a substitute for what you thought happened so that you can create and continue to create and perpetuate the illusion of time. There is no such thing as time. It's like there's no such thing as space. This proves nothing. So I would like you to see this yourself. You don't have to be a student of mine. Go do something else. If you don't hear anything I'm saying or listen to any or remember it, you might want to find out who you are yourself. So your consciousness, you find not your culture, not your mom and dad, not your political situation, and not your thoughts and ideas. When I say don't believe your thoughts, I'm not saying ignore them. When I say don't believe your emotions and feelings, I'm not saying shut them out, push them away. I'm saying don't necessarily believe them or think that just because you're thinking that, just because you're feeling that, it has some kind of operational truth to it that you can actually act out of that. That's why I say over and over again, don't do anything unless you have to. Just another way of teaching patience. Don't do anything. Hold still. Watch what moves. You will find over time that your own innate intelligence, if you've been meditating, if you've not been meditating, then probably the ego will jump in and pretend to be a mindful person. Painful. It's just disappointing, very disappointing to see that you're not going to be able to control this. You're not going to be able to make yourself into somebody else. Don't miss your life. Receive the life that's coming up in your mind stream, moment by moment by moment, even though there are no moments. Open this up again. Don't remember anything. I only know I'm here when I look up. Otherwise, I'm right here. So feeling, craving, grasping, it's an interesting area. But feeling, or you have something happens and we have a kind of a reaction to it, which may be passion, aggression, and ignorance. It's a interesting area where you can experience that, the feeling, and then you can experience the wanting something to be different. This is where the mindfulness awareness practice comes in, is you don't have to grasp. One of the ways I teach this is have the feeling, have the intensity, have the irritation, have the anger, but don't hook up your vocal cords. Don't do anything with it. Just watch it without saying anything, without doubling up your fist and hammering on the brick wall, because that will hurt. So don't do anything. If you could if anything even comes close to discipline, that would probably be it, but it doesn't mean you're controlling it. It means you're observing it, and your clarity about what you just have contact with as far as feeling, and your clarity about the desire to have that or to not have that, or to shut that down is so rich and full. Your awareness is so full that you don't see anything else. So therefore you don't try to leave that for what you want. It's a very, very delicate area. And you may spend years and years and years looking at this and feeling like you're not making any headway. This is a spiritual path. You think if you need to make headway, find something else. Go get a degree in zoology. Then you can take tests and pass tests and get better and be better and feel better and success. Have a degree on the wall. You are not getting a degree on this path. You're not getting any credential. If you think this is a credential, it's not. This only allows me to present as a teacher. As I've said before, if I sat up here in gym shorts and a straw hat, I might have a few students. Would you guys come? Probably not. No, you wouldn't. Or if I sat on, turned a trash can upside down and sat out in the parking lot and just sat out there and got the truth over here. Come and get it. 50 cents or something. So I'm just being silly about it, but also it's true. It's very rare for anyone to see that, anyone to even see this, because it's not seeing a thing. There's nothing you see. This is a teaching of emptiness, shunyata, and Buddhism down through the centuries has been trying to, by using strong concepts and a strong intellectual situation, to slowly lead you over to the ditch in the dark that you need to jump into. But no one jumps. There's no jumping. There's no ditch. There's no darkness. There's just this. It's not philosophy. And it's beyond time and space. Yet it hasn't moved at all. Nothing has occurred. You have to see it. If you see it yourself, you'll know it right here. You won't need me to come. You won't even need to talk to me about it. You don't have to listen to anything I say. You will see it. As my teacher, Koichi Roshi, said once, get your own authority. And I found out that there isn't one. That is your own authority. There is no separate authority anywhere. This is something you could see. But if you continue to fight or blame or credit or do anything with your life, it's not that that doesn't have some validity to it. Relatively, of course it does. And there's plenty of people around you that will, yeah, you should do, well, you shouldn't do that. You need to, have you noticed how much advice there is in everyone? All based on what? Their confusion. If anybody gives you advice on anything, especially without your permission, be polite, listen. That's all I have to say about that. Other questions?
Shoto bowing. I understand in the Heart Sutra, it says both that there are no 12 links, but there's also no end to the 12 links.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's just a way of teaching non-duality. If you have non-duality, if there's no the most powerful one to really begin to see this, there is no life and there's no death. These are illusions. There's nothing that is alive and there's nothing that dies. It's an illusion. There's just consciousness. And even that is stretching things a little bit, because consciousness is still a concept about something that you cannot describe. So it is a way of saying that there are no separate things. Everything's broken down into separate things, a huge mosaic of otherness that is very convincing. If you go to the Bahamas, it's quite a bit different from Michigan. If you go to visit Greece, the contrast is everywhere. You can do all that stuff and increase the illusion, but fundamentally there's just this. More?
Shoto bowing. With the 3 links that you picked out, is there something particular about how those interact that really create that self, the illusion?
So yes, you have to look at all of them, but if you focus on those, you can see, even in the sitting meditation practice, you can see where something arises, contact, and then what's the next one? Something arises, and then we have a feeling about it. We like it, we don't like it. Liking it might just have to do with thinking about it more and adding more thoughts to it and analyzing what came up, or rejecting it, getting aggressive with it. And then grasping might come up. The last one, was it upadana, would come up by pushing it away or stopping it, or justifying it, thinking, adding, don't do any of that. And how do you don't do it? How do you do not do it? How do you do that? You watch the way you have no say-so about it, no control. It isn't about you succeed at it. I'm not saying there aren't Buddhist teachings that talk about ways of being more of this and more of that and controlling your emotions, especially the Theravadins were very much hooked on more control, one of the 18 schools that came out of the ancient teachings of the Buddha. I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that. Some people need to work with it in that way, and I respect that. And if someone came this way, said, I want to do it this way, I would say, go for it. Don't hang around here. All you're going to do is get a bunch of empty words from me. And that's how it'll look to people, empty words. More?
Shadow bowing, can we have the feeling, have the craving, and even satisfy the craving without it being grasping?
That's the only way you can do it. Live your life. You could actually enjoy your life. You could actually, this might bring up more questions, enjoy your anger, enjoy your emotions without any of those emotions, passion, aggression, ignorance, fueling or feeding or nurturing a self. If this happens, you are liberated. This doesn't mean you won't feel like crap. This doesn't mean that you won't have intense negativity arise in your mind stream. It doesn't mean that you won't jump up and down and scream and break out the window. You might. The karma that is arising in this lifetime, in this lifetime, in this lifetime, in this lifetime is endless. It goes back in the illusion of time millions of years. There's no separate lifetime anywhere. The illusion is not only this illusion, but then you begin to see that everything is an illusion. What happened in the 13th century is right here, right now. And it may show up and want to have revenge. You have an idea what I'm talking about. You've been here a while. 1,562,000 years. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing, it's reminding me of that line, pain and pleasure alike are both ornaments, which is pleasant to wear.
Yes.
What is that?
Mahamudra.
What is it to have that ornamental?
Very difficult to do it with concepts. In the traditional way this is done in Buddhism, it's not to say happiness, but they use the word bliss. Because it's not really an emotion, it's just realizing that the Dzogchen masters taught this by pointing to the nature of this is completely perfect. There's nothing to correct. Why? Because it's unreal and it is an illusion. But you have to see it right here. You have to see it in the middle of your heart, not your physical blood pumping device, but in the middle of in the center of the consciousness, so to speak. Even though there's no center, there's no fringe. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing in this
Thank
area.
you for your help, by the way.
Thank you. You used to bring up, I think it was a Lama who said something like, when asked what bliss is, and he laughed and said, you might call it suffering.
Yes.
How is that?
Yeah, you might call it suffering because you know that it doesn't matter what happens. You're not differentiating between pain and pleasure. This doesn't mean you won't be very sad and weep. It doesn't mean that you won't be outrageously happy and be chuckling all the time. That you're not differentiating. This doesn't mean that in the illusion that the illusion isn't still happening and isn't just swamping you. That's why it's very difficult to be around a teacher. Very difficult, because that teacher, he, she, or they, if they're a true teacher, sees your karma. And if you come in and say, yes, teach me, you give them permission. And you better look out because you're looking in a mirror. The interesting thing about it is you won't see what's in that mirror until it's time. That doesn't mean there'll be good results. It's a much bigger picture than that, than success and failure and right and wrong. But the petty mind of the ego will take little things like, well, the teacher did this, so he's not going to be my teacher anymore. And I would say, that's up to you. Do whatever you want to do. There's nothing to correct. There is no right and wrong. That is an incredible illusion that is torching the world. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing, that line again with their ornaments, which it is pleasant to wear, is that saying something like we can be entertained by our negativity?
Maybe a little bit. You'd enjoy the way the negativity slowly comes up like a spider inside your rib cage. Notice how I immediately go to that kind of an image. That comes from suffering. It doesn't come from me having a great imagination. It can be very painful. It's especially painful. You see that happening to somebody else and you see they block it out. They don't see and that what you see there is they're gonna have to look at that eventually. Might be better that they get that negativity from the teacher rather than they get that negativity in the middle of a nightmare. Or in the middle of fighting with their mate. Well,
Thank you so much.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Milka Bowing, when we're looking at what's arising and it's a difficulty, do we need to know which of the nidanas that is? Bowing.
No, we just use this as a conceptual way of approaching it, but once you kind of get an idea what it is, I just say forget about it. You don't have to hang on to it as some kind of a framework you keep returning to all the time. More?
Milka Bowing, if we notice the grasping, but we missed the contact and the feeling, do we need to become more aware of that at some point?
I would say it's just repetition. If excuse me for interrupting you, but it's just repetition. Just go back to the wall, go back to the teachings and the Dharma that seem to be the most supportive to what you're working with. It's going to be a little bit different for each person. That's why we study so many different texts. Some people really like particular texts, and some people do not like that and will not attend that book study because they don't like that. So, and that's okay. Or they don't like the people that the facilitators there. Or they hate some of the monks. That actually is true, you know, you're probably one of them. You're not one of those despicable monks.
Yes.
You gotta have somebody that is like, might as well be you. Good question,
Milka Bowing. So in that framework of the nidanas, does it matter which part we notice bowing?
When you say, does it matter? I think a little bit individually, you need to see that when there's the feeling part of it, and then when there's wanting the feeling to go away, that's the grasping. Or the craving, wanting more, wanting less, wanting to be done with it. So we notice the feeling, and so just observe the feeling. That's why my teaching, the way I talk about this, and it's not the first to say this, just receive. Whatever shows up, you have it coming, not because you've done anything bad or wrong, or you're being punished, but it's happening in your lifetime, in your karma. Don't miss your life. Whatever shows up, don't add, subtract, or divide. Do nothing with it. Put no condiments on it. Just it's a straight. It's just whatever it may be. It's just celery. It's just that. Just eat it. Don't do anything with it.
Milka Bowing, if we are just noticing a facet of that and missing what's around it, are we missing anything?
So your question is saying you're trying to figure it out. Am I missing anything? It's not about finding out if you're missing something. There's no way you can miss anything. You can't miss anything. You're getting everything. It's just that you're covering it up with things. So rather than look at your missing stuff, that's a more relative way that applies more to psychology and controlling things and what cognitive behavioral stuff. Was it therapy? No. What's that? What's the name of that other one?
The EMDR,
Yeah. What does that stand for?
eye movement desensitization.
Okay, so the idea there with eye movement desensitization is just that nothing is they're separate from anything else. So that is a way that psychologists at some point, I don't know who the person who discovered that by going into certain areas that there's things that are hooked up in the memory in such a way that you could emphasize that. I can tell you how I would teach that. Just look at the wall. Just look at the wall. You don't need to move your eyes around, but if your eyes happen to move, then they move. But that happens out of consciousness, not out of some psychologist. Please don't take this as a criticism. It is a description. If you think it's a criticism, you're wrong. That's a criticism. More?
No, thank you.
Was that an incomplete sentence? Not what you said, what I said.
Yeah.
Okay. It was.
Elena Bowing.
Lena,
I imagine that we don't create karma just with the 6 link contact. But do we create karma with the 7th feeling if it's a really intense anger?
Oh, but not if you receive it. If you receive it, it has to buy into the illusion somewhere, but if it's just arising in the illusion. And it's just like the sky is not affected by clouds. Consciousness is not affected by what shows up in it, unless there's grasping, unless there's locking down, unless you want to keep that hailstorm. You want to use that hailstorm to blame others, to beat people up. Let's just let it hail. When I say let it, even let it will give you some kind of a credential. I'm the person who's just letting things happen. Ego's very subtle about getting credit or credential from getting somewhere or being this very kind person who just lets things happen. Or this very kind person who just helps others. I'm one of those people. I'm just constantly helping other people. I don't want credit. More?
Elena Bowing. I understand the links on the chain of existence to be sequential, correct? One leads to an
They're
next.
discussed sequentially. But everything happens, if you want to use the time indicator, at once. But that's the illusion, but we're trying to talk about an illusion, so we need to be respectful to how that shows up. There's a sky, nothing's happening, the bird flies through. There's a sky, nothing's happening, and it starts to cloud over. There's a sky, nothing's happening, and then the moon comes in. So but nothing, the sky doesn't do anything. And no trace is left in the sky. If something happens there, no trace is left in the consciousness, unless there's grasping or rejecting, or ignoring. Well,
Nothing.
What makes an outflow and receiving look different?
So the receiving is when something happens, you just feel it, or you just hear it, you just smell it, taste it. All the sense fields, even the mind, are, if they're functioning out of consciousness only, or if there's clarity or basic sanity is another relative way of saying, just basically saying, no more war with anything. Just receive, just hear, just smell, just taste, just think, just feel, just. Nothing extra. So that's receiving. And then the outflow is you're receiving something, you don't like it. Or you're receiving something and you really like it. You're receiving something and, oh, that's meaningless. I don't need to look at that, or something about it. I just want to turn away and go another direction. Anytime you do anything with what arises, you reinforce the original confusion, the original misunderstanding, the original mistaken identity is what thinking there's a person here and there are other people there. This is untrue. And if you think that's true, you're going to love some people and hate other ones and be neutral with other ones. And just create a whole menagerie of otherness that you will fight with or agree with or have lunch with. It's just, it's an incredible illusion that we perpetuate and painful to see it. It's painful for one to be in it and see it, even if you're not clear on what it is. You're just at the mercy of your own thoughts and feelings. You believe stuff in your mind. You believe things in other people's minds. Some people are so very convincing. We see it all over politics. They can tell you anything and you believe it because you don't like not knowing. And if somebody's really confident, and if this is how it is and you need to do it this way, then we'd just rather align ourselves with that. When I was in the Marine Corps, that's one of the difficult thing about the Marine Corps is I don't need to say anything about it. The Marine Corps is horrible. It trains you to kill people. Not a good thing. But the comfortable thing about it is at least you could get it right. At least you knew that there's really solid forms. If you didn't do these right, you were going to go to the brig. I mean, if you really screwed up, or you were going to get court-martialed, or you were going to get office hours, you're going to get some kind of a retribution. So all you had to just do is everything right, according to those forms. Felt pretty good, but that's a highly stylized form of ego. But that's why people march at the behest of 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people. Let's go attack that country, and just all kinds of people want to be told what to do. So there you have hundreds thousands of people attacking other people. That's how my father was killed March 16th, 1945, 80 years ago. This last 16th of March. And doing what he was told. Shot off the back of a tank by someone in another country, Germany, who was doing what they were told. But the people who were telling them were somewhere in a warm, cozy office, probably. So, sorry to get into the politics of it, but it's, you know, it's all over the place right now. It's on the news, it's everywhere. What I'm saying here is train your mind. So that you can actually see the warfare, how it's created, and not particularly fuel that in your own mind. Yes.
So Bowing, can the outflow and the receiving collapse into each other? Bowing.
That could be a way of talking about it. Actually, there can be outflows that are not really producing further karma.
So Bowing, is there even such a thing as producing karma? Bowing.
Yes, there is. Well, unless there's not. Need an aspirin? Me too. Is there, have a little time left? Go ahead.
Shokubang, if somebody is aware of another person that's charismatic or magnetizing, might they still be seduced into that magnetism?
Well, there's a lot of differentiation going on there, so they could be. I mean, they might be aware of that, but it also just might be convincing. They just might say, oh, they're pretty charismatic, and but I just love to listen to them because they're so good at what they're talking about or saying. I've been it's been said that I'm charismatic or something. I don't think so. I know people that are. You're not one of them. I really love you though.
Love me too.
Yeah.
Shokubang, I think of currently there's a person that I'm interacting with that is extremely magnetizing. And I can see that
Charismatic?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see that there's that kind of charisma that
Is it a man or woman?
it's a man.
Okay.
And it's difficult for me to see if I'm actually seduced into that because I am drawn in that direction.
Very good. Now give me your question, and that's what I need to respond to.
What if I can see that I'm being drawn into that, am I
You're good. Yeah, it's always about awareness. It's always about the awareness of what's happening. That way, it's not that you couldn't still get drawn. There's some danger there, and I think maybe that's what you're addressing. You're feeling like you're being drawn in a direction, and you're not sure if you have the chops, so to speak, to not go that direction if it gets challenging or dangerous or threatening to you or compromising to your life or your integrity or sanity, whatever. So I'm saying it doesn't sound like you're in danger in that area, but it's good to just be aware of that. And so a lot of sitting meditation. More?
Shokubang, if it seems like somebody is good natured or has the intention to do good and they still have that charismatic quality, it's like might I continue to be drawn? Like
Most important thing you can do is train your mind. Spend a lot of time in the cushion watching the confusion in your mind stream, because this is your mind stream. So you can't train on this. You can't go out towards the world and train. I mean, you can go out and help people and work at a food bank or something like that. Of course, I'm not against any of that. You should do a lot of that too. But the way to work with the confusion out here is to work with the confusion here, because this is where it originates at. If this is confused, that's going to look variously confused, insane, and you'll be very at the mercy of this kind of seduction. Go ahead.
Shokubang, so then what is the confusion that's not being understood here, where there is that kind of magnetism towards charisma?
What do you want to know? I know you want to know that, but I want you to paraphrase that.
What don't I understand in my own mind that draws me towards?
You don't understand that there's no one here. There's no one here and there's no one there. I'm not saying there isn't a personality or all kinds of emotions and feelings and everything, but it does not add up to a person. And if you could begin to see that, you begin to see there's no persons anywhere, but there's intense belief in each person being right or being wrong or doing really well or really failing at everything. That's another form of ego, is just the whole failure story of not being good enough. Shame, those kinds of things support ego. It's so important. It is why it is so important to be aware of this rather than try to set up some kind of a standard or structure that will protect you from that. That's a standard. Standards help and they serve a little while. It's good to obey stop signs, but it's not particularly good to set up standards for your conduct in relationship with anything. Not a good idea. Do it with your awareness. Feels much more risky, but that which is at risk is not threatened. That which is at risk is ego. It's at risk. But that which is real, I should say, it can't be threatened. Can't be threatened. You can't threaten who you actually are, but you can certainly threaten who you think you are. Welcome.
Yoka bowing. A question from Lazaro in Portugal. Could it be the case that the let it be kind of practice, in contrast with the passion, aggression, ignorance impulses, actually changes what you are instead of aiding us in seeing what we are?
It's very long. First of all, I don't teach let it be. I don't know if that's what's being said. I don't say, don't let anything be. Don't take your eyes off anything. Look, smell, taste, touch, hear, think, feel. You have feelings, don't stop your feelings. Don't miss your life thinking, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. If you're feeling that way, then I'm not going to use the word should necessarily, but feel it. It's like saying, arguing in the wind. Don't do that. Especially the wind in your mind. Just let it come. You'll be fine. It may be painful, it may be difficult, maybe a hailstorm. But I'm not sure if I'm even addressing, I'm just kind of stopping short of getting into that labyrinth that person's creating.
Yoka bowing, he goes further. The let it be kind of mentality leads me into not making as many inferences. I guess that is the point, but I believe it would be useful for me to make some impulse inferences as I used to do. What am I to do?
I can tell you what you should do. You should sit down and face a wall for several hours every day, or at least an hour, or an hour and 20 minutes. 2 hours. What would you say, Jacob? 4 hours?
I think 2 hours, you do it.
2 hours? Jacob said. So in other words, spend some time taking that which is pushing, pulling, processing, shutting down, opening, closing, analyzing, contracting, absorbing, pushing out. That mind that is just doing everything. Take some time and just unplug the food processor mind and just sit down and hold still and it'll take a few years and let everything just wind down. When I say let, there's nobody letting anything. You don't have anything. You can't just feel differently. You can't just say, well, I think I'll be happy today. I was miserable yesterday. I think I'll be happy. You don't have any control. You have no control. Just because I can raise my arm or lower my arm, you should look at this and say, oh, if you can do this, that's a pretty good indication that you could actually sit down and hold still. The body and the mind are not two different things, but that is an intense illusion. You cannot find the mind because the nature of consciousness tends to, as it goes deeper into away from the illusion of past and future, right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, life and death, it becomes what it is, just consciousness. But when it comes this way, the whole thing slows down and the vibration gets very slow, and it creates the illusion that there's time and space, that you can do something or not do something. But you'll notice if you spend a few years, few decades sitting still or endeavoring to sit still, you notice you don't have any say-so about anything. Everything is still wild and crazy and is on the move. The mind is coming, going, shutting down, opening up, doing the same thing it does in your life, except at this in this area where you're training the mind, you are actually, if I could use the word, stretching the awareness. The awareness is actually beginning to accommodate. It's like you're becoming more like the sky and less like a cloud. Not that there's a lot of cloudy things going on, but that open dimension, you do not have to create it. Just stop shutting it out. You don't have to be open. Just look at what is closed down until it comes apart, which it will. No guarantee, but more than likely it will. Yes.
Elena bowing. I understand. There is no self and no separate other. But you told Shoka just now that you loved him. What is love and what are we loving?
Well, I lied. It's one of the things. It looked like he felt kind of crappy, so I thought, I just tell him I love him.
No,
I knew I was lying.
you're not very charismatic.
You stole my line. Charismatic. So, what do you want to know? Because I think it's a valid question. I can address that if you maybe ask that.
Elena bowing. I was asking if there's no self and no separate beings, then what is love?
It's
And
just, it's not an emotion. It's not a feeling about anything. It's you just see what this is. That doesn't last. But if you really open up to that, then it's just heartbreaking. Because you see suffering everywhere. And you see your own suffering because you're still a human form. But you see it's unreal. And you see people torture each other with it. My students coming to me, some of them are, falling at my feet and just love me. And then other ones think I'm terrible. I'm an abusive, mean, cruel person. And they're all right. There's nothing to correct. People are just operating out of the karma that brought him here in the first place. There's nothing to correct. Everything's completely perfect. As the Sokuzan master said centuries ago, this is the great perfection. And this that comes up here is emotional, but the fundamental thing I'm referring to is love. It's just complete, not separate from anything. Everyone, you can't act in such a way that I won't love you. Not looking for how you act. I have several people who have been acting pretty terribly lately. They will be nameless. Well, maybe not. I'm just saying, but I love all of them. They're not doing anything wrong. They're doing the best they can to live their life and so on. Yes, sir.
Kevin Bowling, about control, your comment about control. When somebody's presented with an environment of like negative energy, or people who are in suffering. And then to kind of comment on your idea of letting it be, do you find it's best to just exist in that environment, or is it within our control to separate ourselves from that negative environment?
So I don't do either or stuff too much because it just goes in circles. And also I don't teach let it be. So what I teach is just be aware of it. And if you're aware of it and you've been training your mind over a period of time, long period of time, to just watch what comes and goes, watch by doing it with the mind stream, not with your life. You can't do it with your life. It's just too intense and too seductive and too aggressive. It's just difficult to do that with people a little bit. But the main thing is for you or me or any of us to sit down, sit symmetrical, watch the movement of the mind, what happens without accepting it, rejecting it, or shutting down, or without letting it be. So that when you get up off the cushion, that consciousness is having gone through some kind of training of just, you could say allowing, not doing anything with it, just breathing, just seeing, just smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, thinking, feeling, without any adamant, without adding anything to it. Then there's an open dimension there that when the negativity comes up that you just mentioned, there's more of a likelihood that you won't do much with it at all. You might, if someone around you're close to 3 feet away from is having a lot of negativity, you might be in a better position, to use that relative term, to not do much, not react and add to it, not react and go to war with it, and also not react and particularly be in agreement with it. And that can be very perplexing to someone who's looking for you to take a position on it. Some people want to fight. They want war, or they want agreement. Or if you seem like you're not being magnetized by what the person's going through, then they'll accuse you of not caring about them. And you don't care about anybody, you just sit there like a stone. You probably are to someone who's looking for war and looking for peace and looking for results, you probably do look like a stone. One of the teachings in the Buddhism is that Buddha, everywhere he looked, everyone looked like stones to him. So it didn't mean that he didn't have great compassion, but he knew that reacting to anything was going to add to the conflict and the chaos of samsara. More? Welcome. We take another question, perhaps, or two for our son, and then we can also end. Go ahead.
When you're bowing, what is great compassion?
Compassion with no compassionator. If it's someone feels that way, like we were talking about, love, we're trying to talk about it, it's not someone who loves something else, it's just love. The separation's gone, so therefore you're no longer picking and choosing. Great compassion doesn't leave anybody out, and it also doesn't include anybody. Although inclusion, to include something is part of the path. The ground is suffering, the path is including, and the fruition is seeing that there never was anything to include. You were never separate from anyone anywhere. And even death can't stop that. Death will come without warning, but only to the body. Consciousness does not die because it has not been born. What comes into existence can die, but what doesn't come into existence can't vanish. More? Is there another one, perhaps? Sir?
Nishika Belling. The other day, you were talking about your practice with the altar, and you said that you might adjust something on the altar, but that it's not a correction.
Yes.
So I'm curious, what is that activity and what's that activity coming out of?
It's kind of playing with everything. And it's also wanting to, as a practice I could do it at the kitchen table, I could do it in the hojo, or I could do it when I get in the car. You're always looking to adjust things. I think some things require that. You can't even drive without really looking at all the details in a car, where the key is, if you have a key. So coming to the altar, part of my awareness practice is to be very aware of what's on that altar. So I've been doing this for many, many, many years, way before this monastery started, is looking at the altar and being aware of the ikebana, the flower arrangement, where the little bell and dorje are, where the other bell and dorje are at the other end, and the placement, and not thinking of it so much in, well, this needs to be there, this needs to be there. That being said, there's some of that going on. There's sometimes I like to line things up with this particular line on the table, but I'm not asking anyone else to do that. So that you won't find any structure. You just see me doing this. You've been watching, you've been seeing it happen for many years. And so that doesn't mean that when someone comes up to dust the altar, that they have to go look at a list to see where everything goes. So it's about awareness. If you're aware, you'll know where everything goes. And where does it go? Where does it go?
Kind of like that.
Kind of like that. You could write that. How do you arrange the altar? Kind of like that. So, and I have the story that I tell about, I probably always get this wrong. Somebody occasionally corrects me. Was it you that did that? When you came up to the altar for about a year?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't you.
Yeah, it was me.
And Ashoka would sprinkle the powder and incense and then at the end it would go like this. And I watched him do that for a long time and kind of thinking, well, that's getting rid of the powders, so that's a good idea. But there's something about it's like disgusting altar, something like that. So, but I didn't know what to do about it, so I just kept looking at it. And this is good. How many years was this? 7, 8 years ago? 6 years. Something like that. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't see where he needed to be corrected or adjusted. People do different things up here. I watch people when they come to the altar, and people do things in different ways. So it's not like a right and wrong thing. We can't do it too much different. You can't just come up here and take a Mr. Coffee and set it on there, and start making coffee on the altar. That's not gonna work. That's too outlandish. But a little bit of that is kind of okay. Is that where I'm getting close to what you're asking about? Perhaps?
A little bit, just curious where that action comes out of if there's not necessarily direction or intention
Yeah,
behind it.
it's enjoying the formal structure of this illusion. What it is, and seeing that this is a place to train your mind. And I want to make sure that I'm very aware of what's happening in this endo without particularly correcting it or fixing it. This is why working with someone who's like the Eno, or someone who's in charge of the forms in here, where they get the idea that it's about putting a little bit of pressure to get people to do things a certain way, but not so much that it's more military like this, where you're obeying something rather than observing something. So trying to be respectful of people's way of approaching things differently. Like Shoka doing that. I watched him for a long time do that. And then I think someone else, I can't remember.
Essentially.
Ash. Was it Ash?
Since she finally corrected you like a year ago.
Huh?
So since you were saying Senshi for like 10 years, and then she finally said, no, that was Ash the whole time.
Well, see, look, see, she learned something she saw I didn't correct for a long time, so she didn't correct me for a long time. So, yeah, so she's a very good teacher for me. So, but then I saw Ash doing that, and I thought, then, as I recall, I thought, well, there's probably time to stop that and say, if you there's nothing wrong with doing a little bit of that, but don't make a big display out of it. So a little bit of brushing your hand would be okay. And I think that's how it was approached, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, and the funny thing for me is I had no idea that it was like not really cognizant that I was doing that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's always about awareness. And that's one of the things that when I come up here and look at everything, it's like the first time I've ever seen the altar. So that's why maybe I'm not looking to correct anything. So I don't have a memory, but a little bit. I see this little dorje sits on that one corner there, and sometimes it's far away, and sometimes I move it back, and sometimes I don't. That's also awareness. It's a very interesting area. It's an area that is of no consequence. So what better place to just experiment with forms and how you feel about moving something, how you feel about moving away from here. You notice I touch, if there's a person up here whose photograph is there who's passed away, I usually touch the top of it so I can think about them. Even if it's, in this case, it's just a little dog, but that's also consciousness manifesting as a dog. Sometimes there's 4 or 5 people up there that passed away, and I touch that to look at their picture. Is that somehow, am I doing some special thing for them? I have no idea, but it seems meaningful to me to make that connection with someone who has passed away, whose consciousness is, who knows what, there is no location for it. But so it seems necessary to do that. But there are times when I've walked away, and times when I'll come back and do that, and other times I walk away and I don't come back. So it's about observing forms, not obeying them. More?
I was curious how other forms show up for you in that regard of not necessarily a altar practice, but is the rest of your life coming out of that playful area?
Similar. Not living up to any particular standard for anything, but still getting up in the morning and doing things very similarly. But not necessarily obeying anything. That's risky. Obeying things and doing things right or up to a standard kind of protects that part of the consciousness, which we refer to as the seventh consciousness in the Yogacara tradition, or ego. Narcissism protects that area so it can continue to hide out. More?
Joe Bowing, I have a couple of questions about the altar, if I can ask. Is it more about returning than correcting?
Yes. Just return to it. Return to the altar, return to the wall, return to the Dharma, return to the teacher, return to the teaching, return to the community, return. Don't maintain anything. Good one, yeah, more.
Joe Bowing, but also recently, and I don't think the person's here right now. But the altar was set up in such a way where that person, I don't think was ever formally trained. Generally where the stuff goes, and you even said whoever did this should be trained how to do this.
Mhm.
So what's that about?
Yeah, well, it's screwed up. I mean, it's a little bit of being out. But when there's lots of things all over the place, then it just, then it just gets more and more chaotic. So it needs to be a little bit, as it says, that Buddha's teaching, not too tight, not too loose. Not so tight that nothing can breathe, and not so loose that the lungs actually fall apart. So a little bit of form. Make sense to you?
Question.
Yes.
Shadow bowing. So when I'm right now, I'm helping train the Eno and kind of where stuff goes. And you even said like,
Okay.
I asked once, it was about the side step, like, well, if you need a form, it would be 2 steps, but don't like lock down on it. But I know there's incredible specificity I've gotten from you where if there were a form, there is a place for each one of those things up there.
So I do that, and if you want to know what I'm doing, then watch what I'm doing. You can welcome to come up here and watch exactly what I'm doing. You'll see that some of it is repeated and some of it is not. And that's about the consciousness that I'm working with over here. I'm not done yet. I'm still alive. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing. So when I'm training the Eno, is it important to talk about the specific reference points? Like
Yeah, that's how you would train somebody. Now, this goes here, this goes there. Usually this is back here, but you'll notice Sokuzan sometimes moves this over here. So there's a little bit of variability. Pretty hard to predict what's going to happen. That doesn't mean I'm deliberately trying to confuse anyone. Just some overflow.
Thank you.
Very good. I think we're at the end of our sojourn. Thank you so much for your attention, and for your questions, and for attending. So good to see all of you. Hope you have a good rest of your day.